Okay, we're back here with the CSC RX4. This is my wife's bike. I already prepped mine. There's been two things that I found on both bikes that absolutely should be addressed prior to you riding them. One has to do with the air box and filter. We'll cover that in another video. But this one has to do with the lower clevis bolt for the shock, and the fact that it doesn't clear the wishbone arm and the linkage. They literally hit each other after about 2 inches of wheel travel. The fix is fairly easy, and I will show you how to do it, but let me show you what I'm talking about. So we have the air box, battery box, wheel, and fender, etc. removed. So what we're looking at, the issue is this bolt, the nut on it strikes the wishbone arm right about there. They will not clear one another without impacting. I'll show you what I mean. Bam, right there. It will not go by. So, that being the case, we're going to make a mark on that wishbone arm. The ideal thing would be machine it on a mill, which I have the ability to do, but since most people don't have a mill in their garage, I'm going to show you how to do it with a die grinder. I'll tell you what bit to use and what aluminum oxide polishing wheel to use afterwards to get all the imperfections out. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that. I'll remove the shock, the swing arm, and all the linkage, and we'll come back when we're ready to modify it for you. Okay, we're back. We have the link arm off. I've marked in black magic marker the area that I'm going to have to remove to clear the nut on the clevis bolt. I put some painter's tape around the insert that goes through the bearings. We have two die grinders here. The first one has the cutter I'm going to use, and the brand I use is a Timo, and the part number is an SC-3NF. They're great for removing large amounts of thick aluminum. Been very impressed with them. The other die grinder is a right angle die grinder. It doesn't matter, you can use the same one for both functions, but it has an aluminum oxide pad on it, and that's what I'm going to take the cutting marks out of the aluminum and make it nice and smooth. I'm using a 80 to 100 medium grit disc, which should be just about perfect for what we're applying it on. All right, I'm going to go ahead and chalk this up in the vise, and we'll start cutting. Okay, we can't physically get the the aluminum oxide disc into the cutaway section perpendicular to it, so that's not going to work. We got to come up with another method. So I'm going to use a rotary drum sander, 100 grit. You can buy these at Harbor Freight. You can buy them off of Amazon. I think you can get them through eBay. So we'll use that drum sander. As you can see, it fits perfectly, and it will be able to make a perpendicular cut to clean up the scoring marks from the cutting tool. So this is what we're going to use. Just clamp it in here. Again, if you're using a vise, make sure you have aluminum soft jaws, aluminum or plastic, either one. Absolutely do not clamp aluminum into steel jaws. You'll mar it and damage the finish. Okay, here's the finished product. You can see it's quite smooth where we remove the material. That's what you want to have. You don't want any shear stresses. You don't want any sharp gouges in it. You want to have it buffed out and pretty smooth. We're going to go ahead and put this back on the motorcycle, put the shock on without a spring, make sure we have proper clearance. And Okay, we have the modified linkage arm back on the bike. We have the shock on the bike with no spring. This is where we modified it for this bolt right here. There's the clearance that we made. We'll rotate the swing arm up through its travel, and we no longer have an issue. If you don't modify that, you get about 1.5 inches of travel before that nut strikes the linkage arm. Not a good situation. Okay, so my wife does all the editing on these videos, and she asked me, is there any way to do the linkage to make the linkage clear? This is the nut that hits the linkage, and it hits right there. This one's already been modified, so it will not hit, but you can see it from underneath now. So she asked, is there any way to file or grind away that linkage for people that would not have the ability to suspend the motorcycle and remove the link arm? So I thought I would get under here and check and see, and the answer is yes. I've got a roughly 3/8 inch round file, and if I were to remove this nut, and possibly I could do it with it in place, but certainly if I remove the nut and back the bolt part way out into the clevis, I'd have space where I could literally hand file this away. And in fact, if I was good with the Dremel tool, I could probably access it with the Dremel as well. But hand filing would probably be your safest bet if you're going to modify it from underneath the motorcycle. So that is an option. I had the linkage off because I pull everything apart and grease it before we ever ride the bikes when they're new. But for those folks that don't have the ability or the time for that, the option could be just using a good round file and file off the interference on the link arm.